Hello and welcome to On Second Street. I'm excited to chat with our guest today because if you've gone on social media in the past few years, at some point you've probably come across one of her videos. It'll be video of a protest, typically with a small little box in the bottom right that says Caryma rules. Well, Caryma Saad is a lawyer and a journalist in Ontario, and she's been covering protests going behind the scenes to look at protest movements in this country. Caryma, thank you for taking a few minutes to chat with me today. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I've seen so many of your videos over the past several years. I do want to ask you though, how does a lawyer start doing what you're doing? I mean, so often when I think about lawyers, I think about people in a courtroom or maybe they're in an office doing, legal work, that kind of thing. What led you down this path to start documenting protests?
So it was curiosity, honestly, that was the driving force. During the lockdown period, my office was situated on the route of weekly anti lockdown parades. And so I became kind of curious about the police presence, the way that protesters were interacting with other pedestrians, the messaging that they had, some of it touched on civil liberties issues. And so
Mhm,
I wasn't really satisfied with the coverage on mainstream media and went to go
mhm,
investigate for myself. And kind of there have been a few junctures along the way where I have redoubled my efforts of what I've observed patterns emerge the longer I've been documenting these protests. And so now for me, it is for sure a passion project, but it's something that touches on, I think, a really crucial part of civic life in Canada. And so I'm here, and it turns out that there are some transferable skills from a legal education and a law practice that have helped me a great deal in the field.
So you mentioned some patterns that have emerged. What are some of these patterns and things that you're picking up from kind of going behind the scenes that maybe people aren't noticing when they're watching the evening news or they're, seeing a clip of a protest or a news story about a protest? What are those little bits of information that you're picking up that you found interesting?
There's a relatively small group of individuals, activists, who are behind a great deal of the, I will describe it as sort of demonstrations or even civil unrest that we see in the streets. And so, what
Mm,
can look like a completely organic movement or show of public support um, oftentimes is orchestrated by the same group of individuals who may not even confine themselves to a single issue. I've seen people
mhm.
repeat in different cities for different causes, and that I think is a micro level detail that gets lost in high level coverage, and is very significant because uh, things aren't always as they appear to be.
So are they doing this as a job? Like, is that how they're able to, like, sometimes I watch these protests and I think like, who has the time to go to all these protests all the time? So how is it that people are doing this?
So I think for the majority of people who find themselves involved in the protest circuit, they are driven by a search for community. And so this becomes kind of a social, recreational pastime. That's not to say they don't necessarily care about the issues. I think your mileage will vary depending on the individual protester. Um,
Mhm,
there are also kind of connections to power, like protest is a form of power. There are politicians who I would say are involved to some degree with what you see happening and unfolding on the streets. And of course, with power comes money. Not in the sense, I
mhm.
don't think, of uh, check for attending today, thanks for showing up. I don't believe that that is really a phenomenon in Canada, at least not to my observation.
Mhm.
But there are many ways that money can flow, including through NGOs or, private donations or union funds or politician slush funds, that whether it is direct infusions of cash or covering the cost of like professional signage, bus transportation, printing
Right.
flyers, pizza parties. So there's all sorts of ways that kind of their material there's material
We've
benefits.
got to, my apologies, we got to take a commercial break, but when we come back, I want to pick up more with you on that point in just a moment.